Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about mammoths that you don't like. So recently I put up a series of videos about mammoths, and in that very small little run of videos I talked about mammoths that I didn't like. And you all came out in the comments both agreeing and disagreeing with me, and also sharing mammoths that you thought weren't worth the read. So we're going to get into that list today. I love having this kind of conversation, rich with suggestions and titles and feelings about those titles. I love it all because I love books and reading. And if this is your first video with me, then welcome, a special welcome to you. If you're liking the vibe, perhaps subscribe. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. Funnily, whenever I have a strong negative opinion about a book, I often preface it with, please do not take this as, my word is gospel. I don't ever mean to yuck someone's yum. I am just, sharing my feelings, thoughts, critiques about a book, and I don't ever mean to make anyone feel bad about what they liked or anything like that. However, before I made that Mammoths That Didn't Work For Me video, or whatever I titled it, before I made that video, I didn't say that. And so there was a lot of opinions about how I was wrong, which is absolutely okay. Or really, actually, for the most part, you all have been so amazing in stating when, there's kind disagreements in the comments. Words are not wording today. That's okay. But there's often just oh my goodness, I can't believe you didn't like that. I love that book. And it definitely came out with several comments about how Abraham Verghese, I don't know how to say his last name, Covenant of Water, I said I didn't like that book, and so many of you were vocal in saying that the book did work for you. You voiced that opinion. And so I did want to come back and say, of all the books that I talked about, of all 3 books that I talked about, the book that people disagreed with me most on was Covenant of Water, the Abraham Verghese, or Verghese. Oh my goodness, I really should have looked up on how to say his name. And so I thought it was really interesting that the one polarizing opinions was that book very much didn't work for them, or that book very much did work for them. And there was a lot of people in support of that book. So I wanted to recap that. The second thing is that the book that most people agreed with me on was We Were the Mulvaneys by Joyce Carol Oates, which I thought was really interesting. There was a lot of you who said that the book was boring, or that the father figure was an awful person. There was just a lot of, I guess there was a chorus of voices that agreed with the fact that We Were the Mulvaneys was not a great book for you all as well, which I thought was really interesting. However, I also got this comment about Joyce Carol Oates quite a bit too, which was that her style in writing varies. She tells a lot of different kinds of stories, that if one book didn't work for you, do not take that as a telltale sign for the rest of her books, because she does have some really good books out there. And because she's so experimental with her style, one book really may not work for you, but you might find something that really does work for you. So of all of the authors, the person that I'm actually kind of excited to try again is Joyce Carol Oates. So I thought that was super fascinating. Also, it doesn't hurt that Joyce Carol Oates has 150 books out there. That is somewhat of an exaggeration, but she has a ton of books out there. She's just been publishing forever and has had a long, rich writing career. I'm starting with the oldest comment and working my way up. The first one is from Bob Keane, who watches my videos often and comments often as well. So hi, Bob. So he says, a couple I would recommend avoiding would be Neil Stephenson's Diamond Age, which is a story set in plague-riddled England, half historical, half fantasy, somewhere north of 1,000 pages. He said that he read 350 pages and gave up the story because it was going nowhere and he didn't care about any of the characters. I completely understand giving up a book after 300 pages and not even making it the halfway point, and realizing also that, you're a chunk of the way in and yet you're still not even halfway there, and you don't care about any of the characters. That would make me DNF a book as well. And then the other book was Anne Rand's. Actually, she showed up a lot, and the two books that people commented about avoiding were Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. Hilariously, I own Fountainhead. I talked about it in a Mammoth video that I did some years ago. A bunch of people said she wasn't worth reading, and I immediately gave it to a little free library, and I have not looked back since. The next comment comes from Vicki, and she says, I always enjoyed Kate Morton's books, but Homecoming was the DNF for her. It just dragged, and I didn't care about any of the characters. I think that's really fascinating because one of the things, or the way that I've come to think about reading, especially fictional reading, is that I have to be invested in the character's struggle in some way. So whether they're a vitriolic character and I want to see them change and I'm invested in that change, or whether it's a character I like or feel something about and I'm rooting for them in some way, but I have to be invested in some way to help me get through the story and have a positive experience. So Kate Morton's Homecoming was first published in April of 2023, so only a couple years old, but it is 547 pages. M.M. Jones weighs in and says that the 893-page Books of Jacob by Olga Turkutchev was the one disappointing Mammoth. They go on to say very dense historically and was not knowledgeable about the history or geography of Poland. My regret is all the books I didn't read while finishing this one. Okay, harsh. I mean, like, a valid critique and kind of harsh. And also, finally, I kind of want to read the Books of Jacob by Olga Turkutchev, even after this comment, which just illuminates how different we all are. Shira Before the Storms mentions the Iliad. The only chunky book that I would say is a waste of time for most readers would be the Iliad, unless you were in a college class reading that, or just the type of person who likes the study for fun. You are going to hate the experience with the Iliad. Just read a summary and get the same story without reading like 900 pages. Oh my gosh, and then I mentioned that I love the Iliad. It's one of the classics that I think is definitely worth reading. So it's so funny how we all disagree. But yeah, I love the Iliad by Homer. It's one of my top 10 favorite books of all time. Love it so much. Gail M. mentions this. I would not recommend The Instructions by Adam Levin. It was highly recommended by many readers for Mammoth March reading. It took me multiple loans from the library and way beyond March to finish. Why I didn't like it? Not sure it stood the test of time. I didn't get it. The most importantly being inside the mind of a 10-year-old via stream of consciousness writing, throwing up emoji face. It seems to be a genius, delusional, and probably on some scale, psychopathy was extremely painful. So of course, I went to look this up and I found this that I thought was kind of a gem. This book in particular made it to Steve Donahue's Worst Books of 2010 on his old Steve Reads blogger blog. Here's what Steve had to say. Take a young author who hasn't stopped writing junk since he was 12 years old, every single uncrafted bit of journal keeping about every single subject that has ever passed through the author's head, create a crassly manipulative shred of a plot starring not only a disillusioned young boy, but a Jewish disillusioned young boy. Take the resultant 1,000 disgustingly self-indulgent manuscript to a publisher who encourages such blockhead prolixity instead of scorning it, and you have the instructions by first and very much hopefully last time author Adam Levin. Oh my gosh. Here channeling David Foster Wallace and producing a book very nearly as awful as all those by his Dark Master. Okay, well, thank you, Steve, for clarifying. Actually, I enjoy all of Steve's reviews. Okay, like a Steve Donahue apologist over here. But yeah, so Steve also said it was just utterly unworth the 1,000-page read. Gail, you were not alone. Sarah Wine and Reads mentions Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Not worth it. Very bold of you to mention a classic. I have not read very much Dickens, and definitely have not read Bleak House. Lori in Texas mentions two chunksters, Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie and Swan's Way by Marcel Proust. Now, Swan's Way is my husband's favorite book of all time. I have read parts of it. I have not read all of it, but it is stream of consciousness, French, artistic, and difficult. It's a difficult read, I will tell you that for sure. Midnight's Children, I have not been tempted to read it, and I guess I'll just keep it at that. Z Jellymold mentions a Sarah J. Maas book, which is Crescent City 2. Loved book 1, they said, but book 2 ruined it. Yeah, Sarah J. Maas, I read A Court of Thorns and Roses. That was enough Maas for me for a long time. But I know that her fans out there are like diehard fans, so I'm shy to critique her too much because I know she has so many people that love her. Kath Kira mentions a Philippa Gregory trilogy. It's the Wild Acre trilogy, which is combined at 1,881 pages, and they say that they should have stopped at the first one. Ugh, I hated it, but forced through for some reason. I enjoyed nearly every other book of Philippa's that she's read or that they've read, but not those. Thank you. Jay Weiss mentions Jean Auel's The Plains of Passage book. They basically said that the main character figured out she was pregnant, and then there was all this story. Now, Jean Auel's books are all about the prehistoric experience. So the character figures out at the beginning that they're pregnant, and then something like 1,000 pages later, at the end of the book, she was still pregnant. Which, Jay, our commenter, mentions like what a huge waste of time that book was, arriving at the final destination, and so little time has passed. Dahlia Finch mentions the goat of long-winded books. The goat of books that are too long is Clarissa by Samuel Richardson, which comes in at a whopping 1,534 pages. Davia says, I thought it was never going to end. Quite rightfully so. That is a very long book. Someone else mentions Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. The commenter said, let's say believable characters are not her strong suit. I've heard that a couple of times. I myself have no interest in reading Rand. But as always, and as a lot of commenters mentioned, that reading is subjective. I'm never, ever trying to yuck your yum. If you love something, continue to love it. Just also sharing books that felt like I was trapped in their pages, to be honest with you. And I'm so glad that so many of you shared books that you felt like you were trapped in their pages. Appreciate it so much. And also appreciate hearing other sides of opinions where people love books that I didn't love, and that's okay. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sharing and allowing me to, share your opinions with everyone here. Collectively, I love to have a conversation with looking at things from a lot of different angles, and I very much appreciate that. And yeah, I just appreciate you spending this time with me, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!